Good evening, it's 6 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Manchester Community Schools Board of Trustees. If you do please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Dave Turflinger, President. Mr. Hensley? Here. Mr. Shaw? Here. Mr. Booker?
Here.
And Mr. Brubaker, Mr. Raymer, Mr. Esposette are all absent. Record would reflect. Additions or deletions to the agenda. Randy Myers for summer school, that's been deleted. Those programs have been combined, so we already approved that at the last meeting. Superintendent's recommended that we pull the sale of the obsolete bus due to the state pushing back the delivery date on the new bus. We have an addition, Tracy Eubank for Manchester Senior High School night custodian addition. We have a cybersecurity insurance addition and a senior trip. Is that out of state or over?
Out of state.
It's out of state. Is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
All motion.
Mr. Hensley?
Second.
Mr. Shaw? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 4-0. Hearing of patrons on agenda items. Okay, presentation, Superintendent.
Yes, so I'd like to introduce Mrs. Corris, principal at Manchester Elementary School, and she will introduce our guest presenters today.
Good evening. I would like to say thank you for letting us present. There's a few things in your career that you're super proud of, and this is one of them. If anyone ever talks to me, it's one thing I always brag about. So I would like to introduce Dawn Walker, my dual language coordinator, and Anire Caro, one of our dual language teachers.
All right, so my name is Dawn Walker. I'm the EL coordinator and dual language coordinator for Manchester Community Schools. We are completing our first year of dual language immersion at MES. We believe it has been a successful year, and it's been a year of a lot of learning. Okay, so we want to kind of explain what our model looks like. We are using the one-way model. There are two models you can use, and we are using the one-way because the one-way model means that you have a majority of one language spoken by the students. So since we are predominantly English speakers, we are a one-way model. This is what our schedule looks like in the Spanish classroom. We are a 50-50 model, which means we spend 50% of our day with the students learning in English and 50% of our day with the students learning in Spanish. So in the Spanish classrooms, the students are learning math. They're learning Spanish literacy, so they're learning to read and write in Spanish as well as doing their science and social studies curriculum. And in the middle of the day, after lunch and recess, they switch and then they would go to their English classroom. And then this would be the schedule for the English classroom. This is where it would look like a normal kindergarten classroom. They would do reading, they would do writing in English, and then we add a 15 to 20 minute math extension so our students are hearing the math vocabulary not only in Spanish, but also in English. These are some of the benefits that bilingual offers to our students. Brain and cognitive. It allows them to improve their decision-making skills, academic, increasing their performances. It does say it will take 5 to 7 years for our students to become masters in the language. And economic, it'll allow them to be employable, which is exciting for our kids. And then cross-cultural competency, aware of cultures. We spend some time teaching students that Spanish is not just from Mexico, that there's other countries, as Ms. Caro is from Spain. And then also connection to their heritage and their family cultures. We had parents and some staff members ask some questions, so we thought we would share with you the answers to those questions that we had asked. How are students selected for the dual language program? So at kindergarten roundup, parents can fill out a form wanting their student to be in the program. Our goal is to have 48 students in the program. If we get more than that, we do have a lottery system where we pick 48 students. Can parents opt their child out of dual language? Absolutely. We do go through where we sit down, we talk with the parent, figuring out, what's the reasoning behind that, but we do offer that. How are students in dual language immersion assessed? Just like their peers, except they are assessed in Spanish for math. They complete the same CFAs as their counterparts in the English classroom. They do iReady, they do the diagnostics at the beginning, middle, and end of the year. They do reading levels, just like all of their counterparts. What is our plan for students if they cannot meet academic levels? We have been having our paras work with the students. If they are struggling, they do receive math extension in English or Spanish if they are Spanish-speaking students. And they also receive language development from the EL coordinator or teacher of record. So these are some highlights from our program. We have 42 students currently enrolled in our kindergarten program. Out of those 42, 5 are native Spanish speakers, and 4 of those native speakers are learning English for the first time. We actually have students that have moved here from Guatemala to North Manchester. So again, they're learning about other countries that are speaking Spanish. 71% of our DLI students are learning at or above grade level in math. The average growth on their math iReady this year was 136% growth. We had some family nights. We offered our parents to come together. We had a Christmas movie night and we had 71% of our parents attend that. We had a Spanish math night. And we had 33% because it was on a ball game night. And then we partnered with the Honeywell Foundation and they provided us with 2 field trips to the Eagles Theater that was based on culture. And then here are some of our pictures from our field trips, pictures from Anire's room, from our family nights. And then we did create a video that is on our website if you guys want to watch that or have any questions about it.
Questions, board?
In interactions with the parents, especially the one, like you said, we were from Guatemala, I often wonder, how we engage that population, and has this improved that engagement?
I would say yes, it does. It offers them the opportunity to know that somebody in our building will speak their language when they come. And Anira builds a relationship with them. They bring their kids in to register. She goes down, she helps them enroll. She uses Parent Square to communicate with them.
Awesome, good, thank you.
How do you sorry. 42 you said in this year, is that correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay. Do you have any indication that those 42 will all move on to the first grade?
As of right now, yes. They're all going into first grade.
Great.
Okay, so do we have 2 classes of 21? And
Yes.
then they flip-flop, we're not counting them?
Yep. They do, halfway, so after lunch, they switch. So if they were in Spanish in the morning, they go to English in the afternoon. And we switch that every 2 weeks. So if they start their morning in Spanish, they'll do that for 2 weeks. And then in 2 weeks, they'll switch and they'll start their morning in English for the next 2 weeks.
And what do our numbers look like for next year?
We're currently sitting at 36.
Is that one instructor with the 21?
And a paraprofessional.
I'll just, if nobody else will ask it, I will. Is there a need for the program?
I would say yes.
What I say, let me finish the
Yeah.
question. Is there things that you need for the program? Donations, more support?
That's always a yes.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Just write down, yes. I'll send you a
Yeah, we could definitely use more. We do try to get a dual language grant every year to try to offset some of that stuff as well.
Okay. But I'm sure you're in communication with
Yes.
superintendent?
Yeah, they're always asking me for more, if that's your question.
Tanya's becoming my best friend.
Well, and I also think there's good support, from, the county as well as the region. I think this is a growing movement as far as providing, especially those cultural pieces, but also supports for our entire community, especially those that are not English speaking. So I do think this is a great thing, but I also want to, the Honeywell Center, and also, what's the group out of Fort Wayne that's kind of been, sorry to put you on the spot, but I know we had a cultural experience we were going to go to over there. Was that just through the Embassy
I think it was
Theater?
the embassy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
And my question was more related, I mean, I know you already have parents, my question was more along the lines of software, equipment,
Yeah. And currently, the dual language grant, that is what it covers. It covers a lot of our curriculum and items that we need.
Board, any other questions?
Yeah, if they, let's say we're gunning for pre-K, right, to move down next year, and hopefully state funded. No, I think there's a good chance this year, honestly. Are you, would just stay with 5-year-olds on up, kindergarten on up? Or would you see this program later if we do expand into pre-K?
You could. A lot of districts do. I mean,
Okay, I just kinda wondered if you thought about that.
We definitely have the Spanish population to do that.
Yeah, that's, okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking time out.
Thank you.
and I do want to, before they are done, I just want to say that, and I'm going to mispronounce your name, so Mrs. Chorus, can you help me out with this? Okay, so just got information today that the Department of Education has a boot camp each year for teacher leaders, and they select 50 teachers to be a part of that, and she was one of them that was selected for this fundraiser. So, yeah, so big compliment to her, but there's some work ahead of that too. So I think that's a great opportunity, and I appreciate her taking advantage of that. So.
Well, we had a little recognition of our retirees, but I think they're all still out in the lobby. So I guess we'll move on to, do you have any financial report or comments, Tanya?
I didn't have any report at this time. I did bring our cybersecurity insurance quote to the board recommendation. Put it in the consent approval items. That plan, our policy expires prior to our current policy prior to our next board meeting. So I had to slip this in here. I forgot about the fact that that date is different than the rest of our insurance policies. So,
Okay,
if you had any questions on it.
do we typically shop those policies every year?
We do. We're finding fewer carriers, and we had to switch carriers this year because of the fact that the other one no longer insures schools. So the market is decreasing in those carriers, let's put it that way, for at the present time. So, but it's something that is pretty much a necessity, kind of like your car insurance anymore, especially for an organization like us.
Okay. No, it's under recommendations for approval, so.
Right.
Do you have anything else?
I did not at this time.
Okay. Consent items, board, minutes are in your packet, claims, regular claims, prepaid, payroll. We don't have any grants. I'll go ahead and read the donations tonight. We have $100 to MIS, the Dale Simcoe Reader of the Year from Penny Deal. We have a donation of $100 to the Manchester Senior High School Boys Basketball Program from an anonymous donor. We have a donation of $1,586 to the Manchester Senior High School Track and Field Program from various donors. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
I move to approve.
Mr. Booker,
Second.
Mr. Hensley, any comment? Okay, I would just make the comment that those donations are always very, very appreciated. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Recommendations for approval. Mr. Whelan, let's do the personnel and the resignations as one
Okay.
in the spirit of time.
Sure. So as far as employment, we have under certified and classified Lydia Little as the Manchester Elementary School third grade teacher. Tracy Eubank, which this was one of the additions to tonight's agenda, as a junior senior high school night custodian. ECA Ron Schumann as a high school football assistant. And then Carter Hooks as the athletic supervision position for the fall and the winter. Resignations, we have Wayne Staten as a bus driver, Kathy Schumacher as a paraprofessional at MIS, Colin Megason as a night custodian at junior senior high school, Lana Knowles as the intermediate school paraprofessional, Emily Penrod as the elementary school paraprofessional, Tina Brunn as a junior senior high school paraprofessional, and then lastly Mark Rickard as the junior senior high school basketball coach.
I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendations for approval under personnel, resignations, and ECA staff.
I'll motion.
Mr. Hensley,
I'll second.
Mr. Booker. I would just like to clarify that Carter Hooks, the assistant to the AD supervision, that is not a new position, that is a security.
It's a ECA position that we put into the collective bargaining this last year, and it's helping to provide support for those nightly supervisions, especially with the fact that we have athletics all the way, middle school through high school. So it's providing supports for Tyson. So.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion?
The paraprofessional, is that just normal turnover or something going on?
Actually, several of these are not. I don't want to disclose personal business, but they all have some other pretty neat opportunities. So, some of them have been here for a long time. Some of them are continuing to stay here at a certain capacity, but not necessarily this capacity. Emily Penrod is actually going to be doing kindergarten maternity leave. You approved that at the last meeting, and so there's some exciting stuff there. But no, this is not uncommon and great. I mean, seriously, there's a lot of years. Wayne Staten as bus driver. He's been very valuable, but he's moving away. So I also want, as far as discussion, I also want to identify that Lydia Little is in attendance tonight, so she's the one we're recommending.
Welcome aboard.
So you guys be on your best behavior. So yeah, that's the person we're recommending as the third grade teacher at MES.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comment or questions?
I just wanted to welcome everybody aboard, and for those leaving, thank you for your years of service and your assistance with our students.
And with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
4-0, none opposed, no abstentions. Retirement. Jay Foley, 45 years. That just kind of takes my breath away. I thought I worked a long time. I worked 42 years, and 45 for the same corporation is pretty remarkable. He's out in the lobby. I would entertain a motion to approve his retirement without exception or expectation. Motion? So moved. Mr. Shaw?
I'll second.
Mr. Booker? Any comments?
Congratulations on a well-deserved retirement.
Jay served in 2 capacities with the corporation, started out as a teacher and then transferred over to assistant facilities manager. So always been very dependable, takes the initiative. I know that, our area for graduation entry was looking a little shabby, and so he's spent a lot of time in the last few days getting that all prepped. So I appreciate everything that Jay's done for the corporation.
Any further comments, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0 to accept Jay's retirement. Mr. Whelan.
So this has been a part of my discussion for a couple board meetings now. This is in reference to the legislators putting language in a bill right at the end that limited the use of e-learning days by corporations that really changed what we could do with our calendar. From the Department of Education actually recommended that if you would like some leeway with this calendar to apply for the 1003 waiver. And what this is intended to do is to measure our instructional time in minutes rather than days. So right now we have chosen to do days, so our calendar has 180 days on it. If we go to minutes, we're greatly in excess of how many minutes we need. So when you look at MES and MIS, if you scroll down a little bit, Randy, you can see that if you look at instructional minutes, because it grades K to 6, they're required to be in class for 5 hours a day, and grades 7 to 12 at 6 hours a day. And so we greatly exceed that. And so by asking them to identify our instructional year based on minutes instead of days, it allows us some flexibility. And a big part of that is with inclement weather. We do have days that we are unable to have school because of the weather, and we would like to be able to continue to do asynchronous e-learning on those days, but part of the state's legislation said in order for that day to count, you have to do half your day synchronous, which means our teachers and students would have to be on like a Zoom conference meeting for at least half of that day, which I don't think is very practical given just Wi-Fi limitations, and also if parents aren't home, some of those things are very concerning. So part of this process is I need a resolution passed by you to allow me to apply for this waiver. The waiver will then go to the Department of Education. If they sign off on it, then it'll go to the state school board, and if they sign off on it, then we can utilize that going into next year. If they don't, we're probably going to have to look at our school calendar to change that up, and then know that basically any day that we have to cancel gets tacked on at the end of the year. So.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion on the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the resolution.
I'll motion.
Mr. Hensley,
Second.
Mr. Shaw, discussion,
Yeah.
questions?
So this is one of the areas I think, in all other industries, we try to reduce lead time in education. We've got these kids in school, K through 12, 18 years, months on end, every year. So you're meeting with the superintendent group. So we'll be soliciting legislative things, and how do we, more time in school is not the solution to better education. I'm convinced of that. It's the capability, like in any other industry. How do we, how can we wait until late August or the next holiday before we go back to school instead of mid-August? How far off are we on that if we go to minutes?
We wouldn't be that far off. It would allow us more flexibility if we went just the minutes alone. And one of the concerns with that is how much instructional time is lost due to standardized testing. That's something that is not useful time. We do get some good data back, but at the same time, some of that testing is very time consuming and it takes away from instructional days. So, you know,
Yeah, it's kind of been the focus, right, for years now.
I think if we go to that way of measuring, we could look at maybe not having to start with such a rigid calendar at that 180 days. One of the things that I'm still not completely clear on is before you could apply for these waivers in 3-year batches, and so we're applying for 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25 all at the same time. One of the I believe, if I understood it correctly, one of the kickbacks that came to a corporation who already applied for this, they said now we're only doing 1 year at a time. So I worry about coming up with a calendar that does that, not knowing if they're going to approve it or not. I mean, if we could plan 3 years in advance, we would know, hey, we've already been approved for this. But right now, I think that there's some reaction now that they're seeing a bunch of people apply for it, that they're going to put additional restrictions on that piece.
So that's my point, is everything's reactive, right? We make a move, legislator makes a move. So like, think about if you could in your superintendent group, what would make sense on this? And that, to become more proactive and start feeding this to the legislation versus, right now it just seems like a tit for tat relationship, somewhere same thing I said at Terry's Baldwin, right? We got it. The schools, education has to become more proactive on these things versus, it's.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is we didn't even know there was a problem. Like, this wasn't part of the legislation that first got rolled out. There was plenty of educational topics that were included, and so we didn't even know it was an issue, and then all of a sudden it just gets thrown in at the end. I'm not disagreeing. There were e-learning practices across the state that needed cleaned up. And I think that was, if that was their concern, I couldn't agree more with them about it. I don't know that this is the direction. So had we known like this was a concern, and we've been included in the conversation, I think we could have come up with some solutions that didn't end up with resolutions, 1003 waivers, changing calendars.
Well, I sat on the regional legislative group, right? So like let's start looking at things proactively and address it, try to send things into them prior to the session versus reactively trying to control things. And we all know some of this is instigated by, again, it's a political year.
Yeah.
Not to lengthen the meeting, but I do want to
No,
talk about that.
I
I
appreciate
think
that.
it's important. I mean, every other industry, we're trying to compress the lead time. You've got universities, just over South Bend, Purdue High School, Purdue, it's to crunch it, not,
Yep.
too much time in school starting up.
And I'll give credit. Senator Zay and Representative Snow both met with our superintendent group, went down to Indianapolis before the legislative session even started and had good meetings with them. And so I do appreciate them being willing to talk to us, and I think opening up those lines of communication are very important. So maybe in the future we have a little bit more heads up of what's coming down the pipe so we can help come up with a solution
Well,
instead of.
nobody knows the issues better than people who work in the schools, right? So,
I would agree.
Okay, we didn't talk about this when we met on the agenda, but it just came up, so I gotta ask this question before we vote on this. This waiver, switching us from days to minutes, all the contracts are wrote for 180 days or 185 days where you're at. I'm assuming it's gonna be a wash, but.
The waiver makes it very clear that the teachers are still on a 183-day contract. So the teachers are still on 183. The students, their instructional minutes, that's what the waiver's for. We're not changing the teacher contracts at all. And so they still
Going
are.
forward, I mean, we got one coming up here in July, right? And they're gonna be ended, and then we're going into November. We won't know if this has been approved, so I just wanna make sure we're not creating a headache for you and our teaching staff.
Teacher contracts will not be reduced at all. It's 183 days. Yep.
Okay.
Unless they want to work 184.
You paying?
Yeah. 183 it is.
Fight nights.
Just to follow up, you, scheduled ETA time on when this might get approved?
They said any of the waivers that get submitted by the 27th, which is Friday this week, should appear at the June 8th board meeting. I hope that is true.
So who's approving the state?
It's
Board of
the
Education?
State Board of Education. So there's a screening process with the DOE, and then it goes to the state board. So
Thank you.
our waiver will be going tomorrow. Hopefully we get any feedback from the DOE if there's things they want me to change, and that will give me time by the 27th. So
And to be clear, we are asking for 3 years waiver.
that we're asking for it. My guess is they're just going to do one. Yep.
Any other questions or discussion?
More stress and work. Why not?
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Mr. Whalen, purchase agreement 7.3.
Yep. So we've been in conversations about. You gave me permission to talk with our neighbor at 506 West 9th Street about pursuing the purchase of that project or the property, and that's to assist us with our project. So we could use that neighboring land for some things we're displacing with our building project. And so part of that process, once you've given me permission to pursue that property, we received 2 independent appraisals, which is required by law. The most we're able to offer is the average of those 2 appraisals, and so that came back. And so I had Mr. France wrote up our purchase agreement. The appraisals are in your board packet, as well as that purchase agreement. And so at this point, it's just a matter of whether or not you want to approve that purchase agreement so we can move forward with that process.
I entertain a motion to approve the purchase agreement for the neighboring property.
So moved.
Mr. Booker,
Second.
Mr. Shaw, any further questions or discussion?
They haven't agreed to it yet, have they? This is just to present, or have they?
The board has to agree to it first, and then
Okay.
we will give them that. And so,
Option. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
And that's what we're doing now.
yes, you guys are agreeing that you are agreeing to what that purchase order says, or purchase agreement says, and then it's up to the owner whether they accept that or not.
Do you want to talk about the purpose of this?
So what we'd be looking at doing, the building project completely or mostly eliminates where our current bus lot is. We do need a secured location to have our buses. That also has electricity because we do plug them in during the winter time. And so we were looking for space, and when you see how big it is, we didn't want to use any of our current green space that's by the buildings, because it's all used up for whether it be soccer fields, cross-country fields, gym classes. We use those areas, and so the idea is to tear that property down and put our kind of bus lot there. For one, we do want it to be secure, and it's closer to the road, so I think we'd have police and other people driving by that could keep a better eye on it, and electricity is pretty readily available. So,
I just kind of wanted the public to understand we're not
sure.
any purchases likely,
Yep.
right? It's an investment, so.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, and I would entertain a motion to approve the purchase agreement for the neighboring property.
We already did.
Oh, we already did that, so all in favor, better do roll call on this one. Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hensley,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Superintendent Wheelan?
Okay, the 7.4 is extended days for Shelley Lifer. So Shelley is going to be on a 205-day contract starting next year in her new role, and that's basically 10 days at the end of the school year, 10 days before the school year. Well, because she hasn't, she's finishing up her 185-day contract as a teacher, and so what I'm requesting is to add 10 days so that she can start. Right now is like busy time for grant writing, like crazy busy time. We're finishing up a lot of the financial pieces from this last grant cycle, but also preparing all the purchases for the summer, so there's a lot there, and it'd be good for her to start training in her new position before the school year starts back up. So I'm basically asking for 10 additional days that will be served before her actual next contracted cycle begins.
Did we negotiate a contract for her new?
Yeah.
We already did that,
Yep.
right? Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the extended days for Shelley Leiper.
I'll motion.
Mr. Hensley,
Second.
Mr. Shaw. Questions, comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Superintendent Wheelan, 7.6, new textbooks.
Okay, so new textbooks. This was the math textbook adoption year, and so I want to first of all thank all the teachers who go through this process. There's a lot of different vendors out there, and everything looks different, and so they're trying to teach their classes and evaluate books all at the same time. And so I appreciate the work that they put into screening them, testing them out, and seeing which ones they felt were the best options moving forward. We also had parents who were looked through them, asked questions, gave feedback, and then we also put it on Parent Square for anyone who wanted to come in and look through them as well. So I'm really happy with what they came up with. We have, those are the math textbooks, and then there's also, since we're adding first grade dual language immersion next year, there should be one more. Can you, is there something below that, calculus? Okay, so and to be honest with you, with dual language, there's not as many options as there are for math. There's basically, from my understanding, kind of two players in the game, and the one is what the Utah model, which is what we've adopted, as well as the state of Indiana is recommending, and that's what we have there. So there may be some other textbooks that I come to you with over the summer that we still haven't gone through the process of, but these are the ones that we're prepared to recommend at this time.
Entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation on 7.6 new textbooks.
So moved.
Mr. Bucher,
Second.
Mr. Hensley. Discussion, questions? Did I get that wrong? I wasn't looking.
Thanks for all your work,
Yeah,
everybody
okay.
doing all this.
Simultaneously assured.
It's a lot of work.
teamwork.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 4-0. Superintendent Wheelan, you gonna do cybersecurity or? is that-
Nope.
Okay.
Sit down.
I have 65 pages of reading if anybody really is that interested in it. Unfortunately, as I stated earlier, there are fewer players in the market anymore for that, especially in the education market. But yet, it's one of those things we cannot operate without having. I mean, we've got to have that protection. So, if you have questions,
I mean, are they eliminating schools because we're a more vulnerable target?
we are a target.
It's an industry thing. So it's like, I got $2 million liability, right? They either drop your cybersecurity or you pay more. So again, everybody wants to raise prices.
Exactly. And they're mandating more protocols for us to put in place. Multi-factor authentication, meaning when you log into your email, you'll get a code on your phone, have to log in. So they're mandating some of these things that we have to continually increase, so to increase our security. But we did have a cybersecurity audit that Tony isn't here tonight. He talked about it, but he had done it with Purdue. And we do have a very good secure system at the moment, but again, we don't want to, it's kind of like car insurance, you do have to have it anymore.
One question I had about that, and it sounds like they're encouraging us to step up some things, which is great, but are there things that we can do technologically and security-wise to maybe lower the premium a little bit more? Things that would get like Cartwright, get discounts, things of that nature.
At the present time, I don't believe so, because they actually have mandated these other things that we're in the process of getting quotes to get the multi-factor across the board so that we have all of those things in place. So I don't believe they'll give us any discounts though.
Well, I didn't know if there were other things that could lower that premium anymore.
We're trying as best we can to see if we can find other things to do that, but at the present time, there weren't others that they offered for a discount.
So what are the premiums?
I thought I put it in there, 8,300?
8,300.
Okay, I didn't see it.
Okay.
Well,
Well, this is one thing, like, whether we, like, countywide or statewide or something, why isn't this a consolidated service from the state where we have one insurance policy statewide with somebody, or, I know, I can answer the question, right, because nobody controls insurance companies,
Exactly.
including the legislation, so, I mean, it boggles my mind to look at the waste in the school systems and the synergies that could be had. Now, you need policies and, you got control of things and different things like that. That's freaking ridiculous.
And there's been some things that they've allowed us to do consortiums with. There's some health insurance providers, in purchasing, but I have not yet heard of anyone being able to do a consortium with their cybersecurity. So,
Well, that'll be coming, that's one of the recommendations I'm gonna look legislators at the state is some of these opportunities for synergy, because that's freaking ridiculous, to be honest with you. You need $300, but you're right, we need it. I've got all kinds of clients that have been hacked, right, locked down.
well, there's an area school that got hit by ransomware, and
Right.
so,
And it'll only get worse, so.
yeah.
okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the cybersecurity insurance recommended.
I move.
Mr. Booker,
Second.
Mr. Shaw, any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Nays, same side. Passes 4-0. Senior trip.
Okay, so this was one of the additions, and the only reason it's on there because it is an out-of-state trip, and our board policy requires that. So they're planning on going to Cincinnati, and I really hope you approve it because it's tomorrow. So, no pressure.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the senior trip. Mr. Hensley,
Second.
Mr. Shaw, any questions or comments?
The seniors appreciate it.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, 4-0. Okay. Randy, if you would.
Take a second. There you go.
Okay. I'm just gonna read what's up there on the screen. Heartland had a pretty great year. The forecast for next year is over 600 students again. The programs are maxed out at capacity. We had a Manchester High School student, Lauren Barrett, received one of the scholarships last night that the Heartland Board passes out. Her plans are to attend Indiana Wesleyan University to study nursing and minoring in ministry. There's some numbers here that just keep getting better. We had 247 seniors and 43 juniors walk across the stage at Honeywell Center last night to a packed house. 330 students earned 3,400 dual credits this year. If you figure $75 an hour for a credit hour, that's $255,000 that those parents saved, or kids didn't have to take out a student loan for. 240 students earned industry recognized certificates. 10 students completed the equivalent of 1 year of post-secondary classes. What do you think that saved the parents? We had 140 students who competed in FFA, BPA, Skills, USA, FCCLA, 34 of which qualified for state competitions and 3 qualified for national competitions. 70 of the students at Heartland were inducted into the National Technical Honor Society, 42 juniors and 28 seniors. Pretty remarkable year. Quick update on the building project down there. There's been several appeals to the EDA, which is the Economic Development Administration, and high schools are controlled by the Department of Education. And they ruled last Wednesday that high school students cannot use that new building for general education diplomas or credits. Heartland issues certificates and then schools issue credits, so I can't sit here and tell you that I know what's going to happen. We have a meeting next Wednesday night to try and figure out what the next step is going to be. So stay tuned for the June meeting. Hopefully I'll have more to report. And with that, Mr. Hensley, legislative update.
Yeah, and Dave, that's it. You know, that asset, however it works out, is critical for the county, right? The workforce skills, so that, you know, hopefully, you know, that's got to happen one way or another. Legislative update, just, you know, most people know there was a ruling in Indianapolis, right, at the school in Indianapolis on transgender access to bathrooms, so that's alive and well. We continue to proactively, address issues like that. The whole timing thing is a political issue. You know, what Kyle talked about, days versus minutes, and the control. Again, I think a lot of that stemmed from, e-learning. We all know we failed there, right? I mean, doing that. Then there is like I said earlier, there's going to be a pretty heavy push to expand pre-K. You've done awesome job at our recruiting tool, right? To me, that's our first step in education is recruitment, and it happens at that age besides other kids of other ages, the promotions and stuff that Randy does. I think that's, that'll be interesting, but everybody's got pretty high hopes on that funding being approved this year, and that's why I asked that question. Is that where, dual language, I imagine 5 is probably about, the right age to start that. But again, anybody has any ideas as far as what we need to do legislatively from any aspects of the school, you got my phone number, so call me. We'll start meeting here in a couple weeks, and that's basically, it's a group of industry folks that we help, identify legislative needs, not the political ones. And it is, again, it's a political year, right? So I mean, we're probably good going through the summer, but just kind of be prepared in the fall for, the havoc that our elections seem to create anymore. Other than that, that's it.
Superintendent Whelan, did you or either of the principals want to talk about the first reading of the handbook?
We have both of them here.
It hasn't really changed that much.
Mostly clerical.
Yeah, and to the board, any of the changes are highlighted in your packets if you open it.
And that's from what I saw, it looked mostly clerical in nature. And so I want to apologize. I did not realize that we did first and second reading for handbooks. And so I do appreciate Mrs. Corus and Mr. Baldwin getting this together so quickly so that we can get that approved at the June 14th meeting. You know, we do want these to be available by online registration, which starts July the 5th, and so we want to try to make sure that these are there. So please take the time to look over it. If you do have questions, let us know, and that way we can make sure that we're able to address them.
I did want to bring up something real quick, and I don't know if but I've been, about 3 ladies have kind of, and it's kind of weird in the last couple of weeks, 3 ladies have kind of approached me and talked to me. How do we dress code? Is that in the handbook?
Mm-hmm. In each one of them, yeah.
How do we address the length of things that our young ladies wear?
I think it's different at each building. You know,
Is there like some dollar bill rule or something where, no, seriously.
Not for third graders, no, I don't know.
Well, not, I think this is more towards, their comments are more towards probably the junior, senior high, and John Lippy's not here, but I thought I told him I would bring it up, because just, I'm their voice,
And-
right? So
yeah.
I told him I'd bring it up when we talked about it.
And I will tell you that dress code is one of the most complicated things we
I know.
deal with. The parents are the ones who buy their clothes, and so it's sometimes a difficult
Well, I have
thing
a couple
to.
girls, and that's all they sell, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Mhm.
people do makeup. Okay, thank you.
Superintendent comments.
Just want to, excited that the end of the school year is coming about just because of all of the celebrations that we have. There's year-end concerts, there's year-end awards programs. Tonight at 7 o'clock is the baccalaureate service. We also, I want to make mention that last night there was a recognition of Coach Rupley at the baseball game. This is going to be his last year coaching baseball, and so we appreciate all of his work. So there was, a lot of people there, probably in the neighborhood of 100 former players or so that showed up, so that was really neat. We do have Thursday is the last student day, and then Friday is the last teacher day, and we are having a recognition breakfast in the morning, and then graduation is Friday night. So, I just want to thank, we have, over 200 employees here, and I want to thank them for all of their work this year. They've made it a very smooth transition for me to come into this corporation. I also know that we have, over 1,400 students with families that have also been very welcoming. So, it's been a very fast year and starting in a little bit late, but, I do want to thank everybody for all of their efforts to welcome me here. So it's a good year.
What time is that teacher breakfast on Friday?
Breakfast starts being served at 7:45, and then the recognition's at 8:30.
And what time do board members need to be at graduation?
It starts at 7:30, so you better be there.
Now,
6
Dr.
o'clock.
Lippy sent out an email, I think 7:10.
7:10.
Is when he
Okay.
wants this, and if you're not gonna be there, he would like to know about it. And I'm just referencing his email. You got anything else?
Nope, that's it for me.
I have a short comment. Tommy Baldwin, Mr. Baldwin, sent out an invite to the board for some end of the year celebrations and presentations at MIS. So I went out for the field day today. That was quite an experience to see that many kids having that much fun at school. I'm not sure there was a whole lot of learning going on, but there was an awful lot of teamwork going
It's that
on.
much fun in math class too, I promise.
Just appreciate the invite. It was good to see all those smiling faces, and with the spring that we've had, I don't know who picked the day, but kudos to them because they picked a beautiful day to have it done. And on another note, I got to see a video today of the senior walk over at MES. Man, looking at them kids, the little kids, you'd think they were professional athletes or something coming down the hallway. I've never seen such a bunch of kids so excited. It's kind of heartwarming, so I just thought I'd share that. And kudos to you. Amy, good luck in the future. Tommy, enjoy your summer. So Board? Anything else?
I wanted to share, most people know already that Uvalde, Texas, 14 students and a teacher were killed from a shooting at Robb Elementary School. And I just wanted to take a moment of silence if we could. It's always on our minds, and every time you hear about something tragic like that, it turns my stomach. And I'd like to take a moment if I could, please. Thank you.
For that, Mr. Bucher. Any other board comments? Motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're out of here. Mr. Whelan, do you